See,
Right.
God said,
Bow.
bitch. When the clip is that perfect before you get greasy, that always feels like a sign to me that God don't want you to be greasy.
Yeah, he ain't let you.
like,
He's like, I'm gonna let you say it, but
you
I'm
ain't
also
even
gonna
gotta
give you
edit
the
it, bitch.
choice.
Like it's cutting off at the greasy part for a
Yes.
reason. All right, I'm gonna send this thinly veiled. Oh no, we took the thread out. I'm gonna send this to Damage to brighten his day because I know he was upset. Wait a minute, is this the right clip? Harrison, how are we doing on time, love?
Oh, he's this person is thumbs upping us.
Oh, I can't see him. Oh, there he goes. Okay. Hold on for a second. All right, I'm going to send this clip to Damage. And it's so crazy. And yes, please drink water. Because
is there anything I can't say? Can I curse here? I can say.
No, it's called Humanized.
Dick.
Anything that's human is allowed. Yeah, it's called Humanized for a reason.
Butts.
Wait, did you? Okay, first of all, the fact that you leaned up and said butts. What are you?
Dick.
What are you? Okay, you don't have to lean up. You can move the mic to your mouth.
Oh, okay. It's just okay.
Yeah, so I will say, oh, I like the shoes, babe.
Thank you.
Those are cute shoes. I'm wearing Yeezys today.
I see. I'm a little slightly jealous.
Didn't buy them.
They look comfortable.
Kanye sent them to us.
Amen.
And the reason why I wore them is because you are my oldest Kanye fan friend. Like I remember when Kanye was starting to be problematic, you and I held on the longest. We were the last to go. We were like, ooh, not Harriet.
You know, it's still slightly holding on.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I think probably had the most fondness for Ye, even in the moments where everybody else was flocking in the mass exodus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, why am I looking for the Yeezys? And I realized because I associate you with.
Usually, yes. People still check in and they're like, "You still on the boat?" And I'm like, "I'm looking from the shore."
That's a good question. How do you feel about Kanye right now? And this wasn't even on the itinerary, but it's an organic pivot. How do you feel about him right now?
It's hard because I have such a long history of like for him. Like he is one of the he's still probably on my list. The person I have seen the most in concert.
Yeah.
And I will pay top dollar to sit in the front to watch Easy. Like that is me. I feel like where I am now, I still enjoy his music. But the thing that is starting to like pick at me was when we were starting to get into like, let me post stuff about Kim. Let me say things about my family and private life. And I was like, oh, this isn't feeling great. And I guess this is also coming from the like clinician and therapist part of me where I'm like, I've seen situations like this where particular folks are sending like certain threats or saying certain things out loud. And then it's starting to generally affect like people on the other side. And that is what was when I start playing his music and I was like, that doesn't feel good to me. So it's already starting to pick at me a little bit now.
As a clinician, though, you guys missed that. This is my good friend, Dr. Shania Thomas. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So when we're talking about Ye, you have a very particular way of seeing him as both a fan and someone who is literally as an expert on the ability to pick him apart. People say, I don't want to diagnose him. You're one of the few people who is a fan who you have a degree. You are literally qualified to talk about Ye. I think this is the part where we're going to cue the intro music and have a sip of water because it's about to get good.
Oh,
child. We love you, Ye. Okay, so when you are someone who works in the mental health field, it's interesting to view people because it's almost like you have to splinter yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the part of you that's the human to human connection, and then there's a part of you that's looking from the lens of being objective with your training. And it's really interesting for me as someone who is not a doctor, but who has very organically ended up doing coaching work, because I realized that it's almost like therapy is the cake and coaching is the icing. And so it works hand in hand a lot. Like a lot of my clients have therapists, and their therapist will be like, you and Blue could talk about that because I legally can't. You know what I mean? Like
there's a line.
There's a line that y'all can't cross, and that's when y'all hand me the baton and I finish the rest. And a couple of my clients are therapists now, which has been interesting for me. having so many therapists be clients, because they're like, Blue, you don't understand how hard for me it is sometimes when people are dumping on me and they're trauma dumping. And the clinical part of me gets it, but the person in me is like, bitch,
Yeah.
I'm trying to have dinner after this.
Yeah. All good therapists should have therapists.
So my question is for you, whether it comes to Kanye West and enjoying his music, but then seeing, oh God, we had a class on this.
I taught a class on this.
Yeah, like I taught a class on this. Red flag, red flag, red flag. How do you suspend reality enough to enjoy music or even enjoy art when your clinical brain is saying stranger danger?
Ooh, because I like the ratchet stuff.
Okay, so me and Shanae are both tourists. So Shanae, when's your birthday?
May 16th.
Yeah, so we actually had a pre-celebration for Shanae's birthday yesterday. And so I know that like Tauruses, we like safety, but we like to watch the ratchet from a distance.
Absolutely.
With the popcorn. We're next to the Scorpios and the Libras and the Geminis who are also in the bushes with us talking shit and watching from a distance.
Yes. But
I like to be mess adjacent.
Mess adjacent. It's over there.
Yeah.
Keep it over there.
Close enough for me to see, but I don't want any backwash.
Right. And just in case you might need some help, like I might be able to jump in. Like I might, depends.
Like, hey, guys.
It's got to be worth me getting out my seat because again, Taurus.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
I'm good for a gentle reminder. You don't have to be here, sis.
You don't have
I tend to do that a lot. Like gentle reminder, you have options. Gentle reminder, that was cruel.
Yes.
So how does that feel for you though? Trying to navigate both parts of your brain.
At first it felt like a duty that there were some things that I had to like pull away from, like, or I had to, like, I was just like, oh, because particularly with the doctor title, like, I feel like, things shift.
You a doctor, honey.
Right. Things shift when you have like certain titles and things under your name. So it's just like, I think, and, I come from the South. My mama and my daddy, raised me in a particular way of just like, be classy and be a lady.
You said the South.
All the things,
the
right?
birthplace of respectability politics.
Absolutely. So it's just like, as you're going through, it's just like, I know I shouldn't be called a bitch or, I shouldn't be talking this way about pussy. But then on the other side, it's just like, I like all that stuff, right? Like I do enjoy that. So
I want to do ratchet things with my classy friends.
I want to do ratchet things with my classy friends because I'm bougie, because I'm a Taurus. Right, like all the things
are
that
bougie
are
ratchet. We are, yeah.
So I think something that I particularly teach my students, because especially when my students are noticing, like, I'm not the typical professor where I'm coming in and I'm giving you a type of respectability politics lesson on like how to treat or work around mental health. Like I'm giving you the real.
For those who are watching the video, I need you to see what Shania looks like, my beautiful chocolate friend. Shania looks like she and Pharrell be hanging out. Shania looks like, the movie Dope? Like she hangs out with rich LA skaters, okay? Dr. Shania Thomas is wearing a backwards cap, a beautiful floral print button down, and a Whitney Houston lavender t-shirt underneath, okay? It is giving skater boy, like high fashion. I love it. I love the queerness and the dapperness and the youngness. But you a doctor.
It's all here. And the funny thing is, I will show up in my class dressed up in my Yeezy sweats. Like that is how.
We love a mind fuck.
University of Southern California.
Like, is she a rapper? No, that's your teacher. That's Professor Thomas.
And I'm usually here and I'm just like, all right, everybody, we're going to check in with each other, see how everybody's doing on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 means that we're in an emergency. We need to call somebody.
They're like, why is Tyler the Creator our teacher? I'm so confused. Like, what's happening? But I love the visual mind fuck though, because healthy doesn't always have to be buttoned up.
No. And I tell my students, I was just like, I don't want any more cookie cutter social workers in the field. It's hard for me to be able to do my job and be able to pass on like clients that I have that I want other people to work with, but I don't want to send you to somebody who's like going by the book. Like as much as we have the DSM-5 in order to like lead us through diagnosis and all that, like I don't want you to use those things as your textbook on how to treat people or how to give good service.
Humanity doesn't come from a textbook.
Absolutely, which is why, going back to your earlier question about like the use that I use, I use media and music. We talk about Kanye West in my classes. We talk
you're
about
fun teacher.
We do media. Like we're gonna sit and we're gonna watch, Disclosure from Netflix in the classroom. We're gonna sit here and watch, like certain podcasts. Like we're gonna do things because if you're working, particularly with our younger generation now, like TikToks, the Instagrams. I'm that old where I'm just like the Instagrams and the TikToks. Like we're using those as a teaching method because that is where your clients are.
Have you seen Anatomy of a Scandal on Netflix?
Is that the one with the
British
girl?
one.
Is that the? No, not
You
yet.
have to watch it.
Okay.
Anatomy of a Scandal. For those of you who are not into British stuff, just push through the accent. Just push through. Okay, pretend it's Top Boy, because it is an interesting dissection of the Me Too movement from the lens of not all predators know they're predators. It's a rich white man who, in his mind, is not a rapist because the world is built for him. So he just thinks any woman that he wants to sleep with must want to sleep with him back.
Oh, yikes.
The joke is that's what Trey Songz allegedly is like as well.
Ooh.
Like the concept that like she wouldn't want it isn't even an option. So in his mind, he's not a rapist because of course she wants me.
Because of course you want it.
And that's that kind of normalized rape culture that I find very scary, because I will say this: we love Michaela Cole. She's an amazing, amazing writer, and actress. She did I May Destroy You. She did Chewing Gum. When I watched I May Destroy You at my big age, okay, I was in the heavier parts of my 30s when this show came out. I did not know until I watched that show that taking off a condom is sexual assault.
Right. Right.
Grown ass woman coaching all these clients, have all these clientele, big old advocate. I did not know that was sexual assault. And the scene where she says, "This man assaulted me," I had to pause, like, when?
Right.
And then I had to Google it, like, oh shit, that is a sexual assault, to, without consent, remove a condom and to put somebody in harm's way potentially, or get them pregnant without their consent. Like, to do any of that without consent during sex is a form of assault. And even something that nuanced, we're all being educated on these things. So art really is very much teaching us a lot.
I mean, again, and shout out to media, shout out to like the younger generation,
shout
who's
out to the black and brown and allies who are creatives, who are putting their shit out there,
putting like words and terms to these things that are happening, that have been happening to us forever, right? Like, I
Centuries.
think I also, like, even when that conversation was coming about, I was just like, oh, that has happened to me.
There's a couple people who didn't know they had been sexually assaulted until they watched her show.
You start thinking about it.
I know some guys, and I always say this all the time, like, guys get mad at me when I talk about sexual assault because I always use Chris Brown as an example. Chris Brown doesn't know that he was raped. Oof. Because in his mind, when you're 13 and your mother's friend wants to sleep with you, this sexy 20-something-year-old sleeping with you, you're a boy. Ooh, look at you being the man.
Yeah.
I know so many guy friends who don't know that they were raped because they thought it was hot that an older woman wanted them when they were a minor.
Exactly.
I'm like, no, brother, that's sexual assault.
Yeah. I'm, and then I'm always just like, I want to talk to those older women. Like, what were they told? Right? Like, something like as easy for me, you know, again, I guess going back to like being a clinician and being unbiased. So like, I have to think about like what happened to those women to where they thought that was appropriate, to where it was
I want to be like, are you okay?
Like where it was okay to say like, yeah, it's okay for me to have sex with this like 12, 13, 14
well, he's fine. He's
right?
mature for his age, and he keeps looking at me like that. And I'm just like, and mind you, I recognize that in my age, I'm now unintentionally becoming a cougar.
Is it? No, maybe. Yes.
It's unintentional because I think because my energy reads a little bit younger. I read young until off my mouth. And you're like, no, this bitch has been here for... My friend Bridget Kelly, shout out to her. We had a conversation. I was like, Bridget, these casting agents keep hitting me up until they find out my age. And they're like, ooh, that's not the demo. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to name I've had a couple casting agents offer me gigs. And then when it got to the time of how old are you again? And it wasn't 32. So then they're like, oh, honey, yeah, so we'll call you back. I'm like, wait, you were about to send me documents. Wait, call me back. And I was like, Bridget, I didn't realize I read so young. She was like, oh, honey, you read young until you open your mouth. And I was like, excuse me? She was like, once you start talking, it's like, this one's been here a while. She's a little seasoned.
I don't know what to do about that anymore. Like, I show up and people are just
because
like,
you look very young, and then you start talking, you're like,
are
you
lost? Do you lost to your classes? No,
I'm the professor.
It's me. Yes.
So because of that, the men that have been, and women who have been hitting on me, I think are like the early to mid 30s. I have not had anybody over 35 hit on me since I moved to LA.
Oh,
you're making a face. Okay, that's all
I'm just like, do you have a line? Do you have like this is my dating age line?
My moral line is a decade.
Okay.
Because I feel
forward and backwards.
Oh shit.
You gotta think about that.
No.
Oh no. Know the where. Where's
because
the no?
Once you hit 40, a decade is 50.
Uh-huh.
I don't want a 50-year-old partner.
Okay.
You know why? Because there's a certain youthful je ne sais quoi that I have, and there's certain milestones that I still want to hit, like have a baby.
Okay.
I don't know if a 50-year-old is going to be really down to have a newborn.
To have more.
Because by then he probably already has some, or she probably already has some, and they're like, "Bitch, I'm on my third." Like, no, my kids can babysit your kid. Like, so I think for me, because I do have a youthful checklist. Yeah, I don't think I could do 50.
No. Okay.
I could do maybe like 45.
45 is that's what I'm feeling.
I feel like a 45-year-old would still want to do the things that I want to do. A 50-year-old would look like, honey, oh baby
Hand me
girl.
the Excedrin.
Yeah, where's my Colt 45? Because to me, once you're 50, you become Billy D. Williams. Okay, this is the part. We got problematic real quick. The show is called Humanized, right?
Wait.
We just called everybody over 50 Billy D. Williams.
No, you didn't.
Look, it is what it is. I will say this too. There's a lot of things that are happening that are in hot topics. I want to first talk about my problematic king.
Who is this?
Your team, yay, and so who would my problematic king be as his counterpart?
Oh, is it Drake?
Yes. Who's the only person who's a bigger Drake fan than Drake himself? That's Kanye. Kanye had an interview and they had a counter for how many times he said Drake. He'd be like, "Fuck Drake, I love Drake." I'm like, "Sir, like just become besties." He's like, "Drake," but one of the things that Kanye said about Drake, this is a perfect look at my pivot game.
There you go.
Segue. One of the things that Kanye said about Drake is, "No, y'all don't understand. Y'all be calling me crazy, but if you piss him off, he'll call your girl and ask her how she's doing."
Drake will do this.
And then call all her friends and ask them how they're doing. And now they're all like, "Oh, we love Drake." And fuck up every woman around you will be like, "Oh, Drake makes me feel so safe." And you're like, "My nigga, like my wife?" So when Kanye said that, everybody thought he was joking. Until recently,
That
in the
lady,
news,
right? Does it say this happened?
a heckler went into the comment section talking shit about Drake's son. Which, by the way, if you're talking shit about my kid, whatever you get, you deserve, in my
Fucking
opinion.
you up on site.
On site, right?
Yeah.
And instead
Something
of
I have to control
when he
every
said,
day.
"Oh, your kid must play with ghostwriters," because he's making a dig at Drake for allegedly having ghostwriters. I think it doesn't even matter at this point if he does, because they're getting paid to help him with his empire.
Yeah.
But like Drake said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna check on your girl because I feel like she might need some excitement in her life." And he did. She posted the screenshots of him saying, "Hey, mom, I'm here for you." and then he followed her. And now this poor man's wife is posting thirst traps and making merch with the Drake owl that says, "Hey, mom, I'm here for you." So my question is,
I approve this.
and they're putting on a brave face. They had an interview with TMZ, but they were like, "No, it's fine. I mean, I think he crossed the line a little bit."
Oh, really, sir? You're real mad.
Drake being Drake crossed the line, but not you bringing up his son.
Not Jim, just saying.
And the wife was like, "Oh no, I have all the excitement I need." What would you think if you were talking shit to someone of that stature and they tried to take your partner?
I mean, who is it? I'm not really. Yeah, I would have to say who it is. Like, I also share, so there's not really a boundary.
That's true.
If now
you
are
believe in
you
ethical
doing
non-monogamy?
it
That's very true.
But
Drake trying to troll your girl is very different than ethical non-monogamy.
But I'm also, if Drake was coming after my partner, I'd be like, make sure you come home with a T-shirt or something. Like, don't come empty-handed.
Shout out to the poly crowd. Okay, this story hits different with the ethically non-monogamous.
Yeah, I'm like, that looks fun. Yeah,
Drake DM invite him to the house.
Yeah, invite him to the house. What does he like? Does he like soda?
Okay, so not does he like soda.
You
like
nacho?
a carbonated beverage?
Right.
So I've heard so many podcasts cover this topic. I don't think anybody has had a guest. Have that
Who said that's fine?
Like, who else can be there?
Who else?
The baby could come too.
Yeah,
But I will say this though, I'm not a celebrity. I'm only a public figure, and I always love to make that distinction because in LA there's a lot of people who are public figures who think they're celebrities.
Are you telling me this?
No, I'm just identifying.
Oh, okay. I think you're a celebrity, but
No,
okay, let's go.
But there's a difference between public figures and celebrities, right?
Okay.
And so, like, I think a lot of people in LA who are public figures think they're celebrities, and then a celebrity comes and swoops down. You're like, oh, right.
Oh,
That's
what is the difference?
I think the difference is influence.
Mm.
Even so, there's public figures and influencers, but celebrities have an amount of influence that's almost systemic, and at times systemic. Like when people say that horrible meme, you have the same 24 hours as the day of Beyonce. No, that's like saying I have the same 24 hours as Walmart. Beyonce's a conglomerate. No, that's not true. That's like factually inaccurate. No, I do not have the same 24 fucking hours as Walmart, you mental giant. making stupid ass memes, right? So sorry, I get really angry when I read these memes like, that's unhealthy.
Right.
And then all my friends are posting it. And I'm like, actually, friend, can you take that down? It's
Right.
yeah, so no, we don't have the same for 24 hours as Beyonce because Beyonce is not one person.
Right.
Even when we were at that event last night, we're going to talk about that, and someone was acting a fool, one of my friends said, well, shouldn't his team be fixing it? I'm like, team? In LA, everybody assumes you have a team. Sometimes you're just one singular public figure out here in these streets exposed without a publicist or anything doing the Lord's work. And so I think for me, the Drake trolling thing, a lot of people, when they troll you, there have been times where as a public figure, I'm bringing it back around, when people write shit about me in the comment section, and I respond, hey, sis, I don't think you watched the rest of the interview. I actually touched on the point that you made. I think we actually agree more than you
do
think.
that a lot. It's funny.
Yeah, and then they'll be like, oh my God, it's Blue. Oh my God, I'm a big fan of yours. I didn't realize you were going to. I was like, no. You just called me a bald-headed bitch 5 minutes ago, sis. I need you to sit with that.
I'm actually going to correct you because you're wrong.
I'm trying to have a teachable moment, but you were coming at me greasy. Let's be really clear. And you said I come do that. I do that a lot, huh?
Yeah.
I be trying to talk to the people.
I mean, you got to tell them because they be wrong.
Like, sis, you ain't got to do that.
I mean, we're also not necessarily in a place and time where people thoroughly read or watch things before they respond.
They
so
watch
it's just
clips
like
of the
I need the like 5 to 10-second clip, and then I'm going to give you my opinion, as opposed to like watching the whole thing that you probably very well curated and posted and thought
had a
about
lot of production value and got glam. I will say what's funny, the antithesis of Drake though, while Drake's trolling makes sense, the one person who did try to get in the comments and try to do a chin check and she got checked and said was Danny Lay. You know, when me and Danny Lay had that incident where we had filmed the show together with Afro Latinas, and during a break we were talking about what it means to be Afro Latin. And I was very surprised because I was the only Black presenting person on an Afro Latin panel. You know who Jalissa, the commentator? She was the second darkest person there.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's Cafe Olay.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there on an Afro Latin panel, like the only spot of brown in a sea of whites presenting Latinos. I'm like, where's the Afro, y'all? I think only one of us up here can even make an Afro. This is awkward. And so I'm looking at Danny Lay. Well, she Dominican. I got Dominican brothers and sisters. I'm going to latch onto that. So I immediately felt a kinship to her because we're from the same island. And at one point, she said something to the effect of, and I'm trying not to dig up old demons. Like, basically, I don't understand why Black Americans get so mad at me because I like their culture. I like their music. The men love me. I think those girls are just bitter. And I said, ooh, I said, Danny, don't say that.
Yeah.
I said, well, Danny, can you accept that even if you might not be the right place for any vitriol they might have, that their pain is real because colorism is real. And systemically, those Black women have been told that they are inferior over and over again.
Yeah.
She was like, nah, I didn't do nothing to them. They need to cut. And I was like, okay, well, sis, I just think you need more education on this. I would really advise you not to say that in public or when we start rolling, right? So I'm thinking this poor sweet, because she was really sweet. Danny Lay is very sweet. I want to say this to the audience. Danny Lay's a sweet girl, but she is young and she's had her head gassed up in ways that she hasn't unpacked yet. And she's uneducated, right?
I don't know if people are knowledgeable when they talk about like celebrities about like age development. Right? I guess in my doctor mind, I'm like, please also remember that a lot of these like celebrities are like 21, 22, 23, 24, right? Like they haven't hit a lot of certain milestones. The perspective that we have on like development socially is going to be different. Like it's warped, right? Like they're not coming from the like, you grow up, you go to school, you graduate, you go to college, you get a job.
You
like
struggle,
that's not,
you get your heart broken.
They're not doing that. They're on a whole other different
They have
trajectory.
handlers. The fact that you have a handler to bring you your cereal, like think about that.
Right. And then you throw in a baby?
But this was before she was pregnant, though.
I can't imagine.
So this was before she was pregnant, and I remember thinking to myself, "This girl's so sweet." And I told one of the producers, "Somebody give her my number," because I think she's a sweet girl who's saying ignorant things because she has friends gassing her up, and that if she just had like a big sis, it would make a difference. So I walked away very disappointed, but also sympathetic towards her. I told my makeup artist the next day when I got my face done for another show. I told the person I was dating at the time. I told a couple of friends the story. Like, I met Danny Lay. She said some problematic things, but she's a young Dominican girl. I don't think she understands the Black experience and the African American culture, and that she's a visitor in some ways because she doesn't identify as Black. So it was really weird when the camera started rolling and we had to say your name and what you identify as. And I was like, I'm Blue Lucifer and I'm Afro-Latina. She said, I'm Danny Lay and I'm Afro-Latina. I said, You just told me you weren't Black before. Wait, what? So that was the first thing, like, oh, but you just said you weren't Black and you were othering Blackness as something that you were not
Very much
off
so.
camera, and now we're all saying we Afro-Latino like it's a fucking gap ad. Like, what's happening right now? Fast forward, Yellowbone comes out.
Oh, because, all right.
Then fast forward when the baby has DeLive. Remember the DeLive? You just a side piece, shorty. I don't know why you stole in my house.
Oh my God.
I like to get impersonation. I think it actually sounded like the baby a little bit. I should probably get into improv. So at this point, everybody's talking about Danny Lay. What'd she do? Poor thing. We feel so bad for her. And me forgetting that I work at Hollywood Unlocked and that there's millions of people watching. When they asked me what I think about it, I said, hey guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I sympathize with Danny Lay as a woman, but considering that she's personally told me that she doesn't consider herself black, and she made a song trying to antagonize a black woman, saying that she was superior, and they hit her back, I just wish that she had more people around her to educate her. And I'm going to tell her again, somebody needs to give you my number.
The layers.
She got into the comment section and told everybody I was lying. Did not realize that I had receipts, screenshots, eyewitnesses.
Oh, just because. I mean,
She tried to pull a Drake. She tried to pull a Drake trying to check somebody in the comments, not realizing that, honey, there's a reason why we were in the same room. I have access too.
yeah. Like, you didn't think that I was going to do that?
Celebrities sometimes will lie in the comments because they think the person that they're hanging on is a nobody that they can lie to. Which brings me to this topic. As someone who educates on this, I call it asserting dominance, and tell me if I'm wrong. I think there's a certain assertion of dominance that happens when someone has identified that they are of a higher social standing than you, and therefore they think that they don't have to meet you with the same level of respect or reciprocity or just basic like decency. Is that somebody asserting their dominance? Because I've had it argue with people like, I feel like you're trying to assert your dominance right now and it's making me uncomfortable. Is that the right terminology? Like if you're having an example and like perfect example, when I'm talking to my ex, he was a guy, and whenever he would get upset because I was making a good point that he couldn't counter, he would start talking to me like he was my daddy. He would square up, tell me I'm being childish, X, Y, and Z. I was like, if you're squaring up and putting bass in your voice and talking down to me like I'm a child, I feel like you're trying to assert your dominance to make me feel small.
Yeah, or I'm trying to regain my power, right? Where it's just like if I'm in a situation where I feel like I am no longer maybe the identities that I have no longer put me in the forefront of this conversation, and you're starting to either like, you're bringing in new information or you're challenging me in a certain way that I wasn't prepared for. I always talk about it as just like, it sounds like you're trying to vie for a certain level of power in this situation. And for some people, like, especially because I do like DEI work, quotes, because what kind of work is that? But I feel like I talk to people a lot about when you're coming into a room, like you're always trying to figure out where your position is, right? Like who has what, who's gained what do I have?
I'm the superior one here. I'm the
superior.
Yeah.
Let me check all my identities of how I show up, because sometimes I have to think like, I don't know how you're being oppressive or discriminatory against me, because it could be I'm black or I'm queer or because you assuming I'm a woman, right? So even in conversation where people are trying to figure out like, how can we make this exchange equitable, especially if you have maybe an identity that's dominant or has a certain level of power, I always have to like push that in the forefront to make sure that
I call it the do you know who the fuck I am mentality.
You know who the fuck I am.
But here's the thing though, is there a healthy way to regain your power without trying to assert dominance over someone else by making them feel small?
Yeah, I think
because
there's a
that's
way
what
to talk
bothers
about
me.
it
Like
equitably.
people taking their power back, I love, but you asserting dominance in order to make me feel small to make you big as a comparative thing, to me that feels toxic. Because I don't have to be small. I don't have to be small and lose something to make you gain something.
Absolutely. So that's where I think about it is like being equitable as opposed to equal, right? Sometimes it's not about being 50%.
That's
right?
the first time you heard that, being equitable as opposed to being equal. I tell people all the time when black men and I are having conversations and they talk about how women treated them, I said, your pain is equitable, but we are not equals in the hierarchy.
No.
The way a black man is perceived societally speaking in a patriarchal society is not the same thing that I'm being seen. So you can't weigh it the same when you malign me versus when I malign you. I'm maligning you as a person. You're maligning me as a system. And they be like, I wasn't prepared for any of this. I was just saying that she's a bitch. I'm like, she can be a bitch singularly, but when you do it and you're being sexist, being sexist is very different than being a bitch.
It's different.
Two people are doing something that seems similar. A perfect example, and please tell me if you agree with this. I love having somebody who can technically tell me if I'm being on my P's and Q's. We had an argument about the word on my show about the word threesome. Me and my two male co-hosts, who I will say, I've watched become a lot more evolved just from having me in the room. And because even when they don't agree with me in the moment on the show, later on, 3 episodes later, they're repeating something I had said and that they had disagreed with. I was like, look at you evolving after you.
Right.
Look at you evolving.
Yes.
So at one show, we were talking about sex and they were mentioning a train. I said, you mean a threesome? They were like, no, it was a train because it was a girl and 2 guys. I said, pause. Threesome means 3 people, right?
Yes.
If you leave your house as a man and sleep with 2 people of the opposite sex, women, identified humans, you had a threesome, you're the man. If I, as a woman, leave my house and have sex with 2 people of the opposite sex, I'm a hoe who got a train ran on me. We both had a threesome. But you want to call it a train because I have to be demeaned when I do the same thing you just did.
Mm-hmm.
It is threesome means 3 equitable people are fucking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It literally is in the title. Threesome.
Three
of them are trying to get some.
Whoever. Rest. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I was like, when you make it a train only because the woman is the minority in the room, that is sexist.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we disagree. And I said, I think it's cute. You think you disagree about what's demeaning to me as a woman.
Right.
You actually don't have men. You don't have a right to agree on everything. It's like saying I disagree the sky is blue. Not everything actually needs your input.
No.
And so that moment for me, I walked away very angry because I could tell that in their man brain, they weren't being sexist. They've always just been taught that if it's a woman, it's a train.
You're holding on to your power.
Fast
right?
forward, Jason Lee is now on Angela Yee's lip service. And he's sitting next to Money Long, who we love. Money Long, hours. You know that song?
Oh,
I could
okay.
do this
Thank
for
you.
hours.
Yes,
Sit and kiss you for hours. This is why I'm not on the record because I can't sing it. And she had a moment where, because I always say this all the time, whether you're male or female, we're all taught misogyny. Whether you're black or white, we're all taught racism. Mm-hmm. So it's bullshit to say because you belong to a group that you can't be anti that group. Not all skin folk or kinfolk.
Right.
They're talking about sex and they were talking about a threesome. And she's like, oh, but that's a girl, so that's a train. She, as the woman, said that.
Mm-hmm.
My booty cheeks immediately clenched because Jason said next to her, I was like, if he co-signs,
Good, right?
my work here is done. I have done nothing good on the show. And with that, and I love him for this. I actually texted him that I was proud of him. He said, no, honey, that's a threesome.
Hello.
She said, what? No. I was taught that some girls like getting trains ran on them, and not realizing that she was accidentally doing the whole shaming thing. He's like, that's fine. Anybody can like getting fucked. But 3 human beings is a threesome because the connotation of a train is that she's a dirty slut rather than an equitable partner. I'm like, Jason Lee, is that you?
Hey.
I took the clip and I said, Jason, I am so proud of you. I don't even think he remembers that he got that from me, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty of that is when you call people in to have a learning moment, they don't hold on to the shame because you didn't shame them, but they find themselves naturally evolving on topics without realizing it. How do you teach without shaming? Because I'm still constantly evolving on how to do that.
Yeah. I meet people where they are, right?
Ooh, what if it's in the gutter?
Like, I mean, some people are in the gutter, right?
So
like,
you kneel
at
down?
some point I was in the gutter, right? You got to kneel down. You got to get on the floor. Like, you got to get right there.
Get
and
some
it's
knee pads
Get
and
some
get
knee
in there.
pads.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just like either reflecting their own language. Like, I'm not going to talk about trains and threesomes in the same way that I am in like an academic institution, which is not the same that I would with clients, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's just about shifting and changing your language. I also, and I think this is a long time like therapist lesson that I've had of just like, for example, you having that lesson for Jason in that moment, it might not have clicked immediately, but it seeped into his brain, right? Subconsciously.
He probably doesn't even remember the episode.
There had to be another example, with Angela Lee, there had to be another example in order for him to apply that knowledge, right? So sometimes when I'm with people, I remember that I'm only with people for 50 minutes, an hour and 15, whatever. But I'm going to speak light into you and give you information that reaches your level, and maybe you need to come back in order to get that lesson, right? Maybe that lesson is going to happen days or months from now.
Yeah.
But as long as I keep coming to you genuinely and say, I actually want to give you some different information to maybe have a different mindset, my trust is that you're going to go, and hopefully it seeps in, right? But I have to let that go, that I have power to be able to change your mind.
Yeah, I don't ever want to own anybody else's process. I actually
Right.
find it heavy. And it's so funny because one time we were having a conversation and out of nowhere, Damage, my other male co-host, said, well, I don't want to kink shame. I was like, I don't have these boys sound like that's hilarious. I have a dude from North Philly talking about I don't want to kink shame. And then one time he called me, he was like, yo, one of my boys, his girl had a girl in VIP, but like she was trans and he was upset. And I was like, why? It's still a woman and why do you care? He was like, but it makes me look bad. And he was like, but you be having ugly bitches and you don't care about that either. Like, a beautiful trans girl
Right,
is no
what's the
worse for
problem?
your branding.
No.
But in his own male way, I was like, Damage, you're teaching your friends not to be transphobic.
Yeah.
He's like, I was just telling him it sounded stupid. I was like, no, Damage, you're an advocate. I know you think you're just trying to do what's right, but I love seeing how when you call people in, to use David Johns' terminology, I love David. You met him last night. First of all, I'm going to ask you later how you even know David, because DC's so small, I'm not surprised.
So yeah, we've run into many spaces together.
And so like calling people in is so funny because you do it in a way that they don't even realize they're getting it from you.
Mm-hmm.
All they know is something inside of them is telling them this is wrong. Let me pivot. I really wish we could have more conversations. Like I had a friend say, how do you feel that people often mimic you or regurgitate your language but don't cite you? And I was like, I'm not doing it to be cited because I had to learn it from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it to change the world that my children are going to inherit.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have an argument on Monday and by Saturday you're advocating for my point and forgot that you got it from me, you're passing on to somebody else who got it from you.
Fine.
And then so on and so forth. And the next time I talk to y'all as a collective, we're suddenly talking in a really kind of freaking healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find it hard sometimes, though, to date, though? Or do you only date people who are equally emotionally intelligent as you? You like that pivot?
How did we get there? Dating. How do I talk about this? I'm in this season to where you have to have a certain level of understanding about things. Not to say that they always have to be the same, but first of all, how connected to you are your blackness. And when I say connected, like committed and affirmed, right? Like blackness can look on very different spectrums, but there has to be a certain perspective that you have.
I always say that I can
experience
only
that you
fuck
have
with
to
black
have.
people who
That's
actually
important.
like being black.
That's it. That's it.
Not all, like you guys, for all my white, Asian, and non-black listeners and viewers, there are lots of black people who don't like being black because we're all taught anti-blackness.
Yeah, all of us. Every single one of us.
And I personally cannot have intimate space with black people who do not love their blackness.
No, that doesn't feel good to me. And I need for you to also have a certain level of understanding of queerness. Not queerness in terms of sexuality, but my queerness is just like, is political. My queerness is personal. My queerness is in my motherhood and my partnerships and how I date and how I fuck. Like, I need for you to think outside of a certain line or box for me. And even if I've dated people that identify as heterosexual, there still has to be a level of queerness and difference, even in expression and aesthetic, that is important to me.
I love that you said that, because now that I think a lot of my DC friends, because I was in DC for 12 years and they all only saw me with women. Well, first of all, I made sure that y'all didn't see me with anybody. I've always been very discreet with my situations. But like, a lot of them were like, well, now that you're dating men more in LA, does that mean you're straight now? I said, no, I'm still pansexual. But I realized that I can only date men who are allies to the queer community, because I can't sleep next to and do life with someone who would attack the people that I used to love.
Absolutely.
Like, there's something about that. I cannot be with a man who's homophobic, no matter how amazing he was to me. In the same light, I was having a colorism conversation with a homegirl, and I asked her, I was like, you said that you are an ally and you don't believe in colorism, but when you told me that you're dating a guy who made a big old point about how he only talks to yellow bones, did you push back on him on that? She got real quiet.
Yeah.
So I was like, you can't say that you don't believe in colorism, but not only benefit but leverage and capitalize on colorism in your mating practices, and intentionally date colorist men because you're quote unquote on the winning team to them. In that moment, you are actually feeding colorism, whether you think you're colorist or not.
Absolutely. How are you talking about me behind closed doors?
Exactly.
That's what I need to know. Like, even if I was...
That's a fucking gem. You are full of gems. You the gem dropper.
I be trying.
You the hamburglar.
I be trying. But yeah, that is very important to me. That no matter who I date, like, I need for you to be like pro-black, pro-queer, like pro-fat. I need pro-dark skin. Like, there are all these check marks where it's just like, I can leave you with a group and I know that I'm going to come back and I'm not going to have to feel like, what did you all talk about that I'm not here? Like, what did you say? Like,
I love that
that's
you said pro-fat, because I think when I moved to LA, people were shocked by me using the word fat. And I was like, no, you guys keep trying to make me the token. I can't tell my people, but like, I don't usually date big girls, but this, you know, you pretty and I like your energy and you smell good. I'm like, what am I, a show pony?
I'm just like, why are we still here?
Yeah. And so when I moved to LA, I made a point to talk about fatness in everybody's face immediately.
Blatantly, yeah.
Like, I'm fat, I'm fine, I'm awesome, I'm amazing, I'm probably the dopest bitch you'll date, but like, please do not think that I'm apologizing for this body or that you're doing me a favor by dating me. And a lot of people have tried to date me thinking, oh my God, the fact that I could see past this and see how beautiful she is. Like, I was, no, there's nothing to see past. I'm amazing.
Right.
And I will say in DC, and this is going to be controversial but brave. Ooh, I'm about to do it. Okay, I need to figure out how messy this is going to get. In DC, there was a lesbian who had a deep affection for me. And the chemistry was undeniable to the point where I shut down and they were pursuing me a little bit heavily. Then I realized that they could not reconcile with my size despite being heavily attracted to me. For years, they told everybody, to the point of me losing friends, that I was a delusional person with a one-sided crush. And the audience was prepared to believe them because here's this heartthrob that everybody likes who doesn't date big girls, so blue must be delusional. I spent over a decade being maligned, having my character attacked, being told I was delusional just for being honest about a connection that was mutual. And also being honest with the fact that those thin girls that you would date, whenever you would break up, you would end up at my house.
For comfort.
For comfort.
Right?
And I became really offended that you had a stronger connection with me, but optics made you keep running back to them. I let this go. I took it as a painful a decade's a long time lesson. And then I get drunk with this person one night and they cry and finally admit that they love me.
Oh, okay. Well,
and I said, well, at least you're telling the truth now. 2 months later, they're sober. We're back in DC around our friends. And I said, but we used to have that connection. And they said, I don't know what you're talking about. I've only ever seen you as a friend. There's a level of pain that I have with that has now made it impossible for me to ever let anybody act like them liking me or wanting me is something that has to be a secret or that it's going to be downplayed, because I now intimately know what it's like to be slandered for having the audacity to like yourself. A full decade of my life. And this is something that, which is why I'm being very thoughtful with my language.
Okay.
And me and this person are still friendly, but I don't think they recognize how much harm their internalized fat phobia caused me.
Yeah.
Because there were times where they, at half my size, were going on diets trying to lose weight. And I'm walking around just cute and fun in my short sets, looking like I'm ready to get fucked and have a great time. And they would be like, you're so conceited. And I was like, why are you mad that I like myself?
Right.
What advice would you give? And fat phobia is only one place this happens. It happens with dark-skinned girls who, for some reason, I've never gotten the colorist thing personally, which has always been weird to me because I'm like, I think the fat phobia was always a thing, but I've never had somebody say you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. I also had somebody check me and said that I do have color dysmorphia. Even though I'm a dark-skinned chocolate woman, up until, don't laugh, 2 years ago.
I'm just like, all these terms. What? Okay, what does that mean?
Because I went to buy makeup for the first time because, I was getting my makeup done professionally. And I grabbed the palette and it looked like blackface. I was like, oh, that's not my color. And they were like, hey, that's Lupita. And I was like, oh, no, but we chocolate. We both, she chocolate, I chocolate.
I have a little bit of that too.
Yeah. And I thought me and Lupita were the same color. And the lady had to sit me down and had like an intervention. Like, you and Lupita Nyong'o are not the same color.
But yeah, it's just like for some group of people, I'm light skinned, which really throws me off.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what? But y'all be tricking me.
And Afro Latin spaces, my mom was the darkest. I had cousins who look like the barges. So in my mind, I think my color skewing is once you hit chocolate, it's all just chocolate.
Right.
And so I realized that whether it's colorism or fat phobia or whatever, or classism, how do you deal with when you're someone who is not conventionally attractive? Because a lot of times people say beautiful girls do well in LA. I'm like, but I'm a beautiful girl. And I know that I can't rely on being beautiful because I'm not conventionally beautiful, even though I know I'm beautiful.
What does that mean, though?
Conventionally beautiful means fat phobic and white presenting.
White presenting.
So you got to be a size 2.
People out here that call themselves attractive, and I'd be like, to who? Right? Like,
yo, if you light enough or scrawny enough, you're gonna be attracted to somebody.
Right. Is this where the problematic part comes in? Because for me, I'm just like, if you call yourself conventionally attractive, the way that I see if you're really attractive is like if I can also picture you darker skin and you're still attractive to me.
Ooh,
I do that. That's because dark skin first and foremost for me, like period. And then when I see other people and I'm just like, okay, you're calling yourself conventionally attractive, but is that only because you're light skinned? Is that bad to say?
It's not bad to say, but this is a celebrity who is a biracial child of a famous person who I think is aggressively unattractive because of her complexion. I don't think she knows it. And this is not to talk ill of light skinned people at all, duh, obviously, because I've been talking about my own fucking family. Yeah. But I do think that when you're on the winning team, merit goes out the window. So in the same way that when a white man is mediocre because the world is built for him, who cares? He's still winning.
Right.
If you are white presenting or really thin or really rich, or there's lots of currencies in the hierarchy, that thing will skew your ability to feel good about yourself in a way that somebody who doesn't have access wouldn't. So perfect example. How many guys have we known who would meet Naomi Campbell and or Normani or Ryan, that beautiful girl Ryan, I forgot her, Ryan Destiny.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, she's not cute enough for me, but then date a white woman who looks like Pac-Man, right? And so like, built like a refrigerator, ramen noodle hair, but this is your white queen, right? And so like, let's be honest, you're not being shallow, you're being anti-black at that moment, because shallow means I like pretty shit.
Or like, if you like that, that's
no.
fine. Just don't
shallow
say,
means pretty though.
Like,
let's be honest, shallow means pretty.
But I'm also just like, pretty to whom, right? Like,
but if she was darker, to use your point, if Becky was dipped in chocolate shaped looking like Pac-Man, you would call her ugly.
I mean, I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna say, like, are you still cute? Am I still attracted to you?
There've been a couple of guys that I've known who've dated women who were not attractive but were white.
Oh, I mean,
and that immediately made them attractive. And then I'll see a supermodel who happens to be black, and they're picking her apart. And I'm like, okay, that's not shallow anymore. That's not preference. That is anti-blackness. Because objectively speaking, this is one thing I think is a skill of mine. I objectively see beauty. Like, I'm clear where I chart on the scale, regardless of my own personal interest. If I had an ugly baby, I would know. You know how I know? Because my mother, when I was born, said I had a funny nose. And she was like, ooh. And she spent the first month of my life fixing my nose. So it's in my genes.
There's just a level of...
we don't have rose colored in my family. We know attractive and not attractive, regardless of if it belongs to us or not. There's a couple of people, I'm not going to get too much of my family business, but we know if you're cute or not in my family. Gotcha. So I know a lot of times I'll see somebody who's really attractive and people are acting like they're not attractive just because they're black or fat or whatever. And then I'll see somebody who's extra regular, who's getting like all this head gassing just because they fit the stereotypical ideal. And that makes me nervous. Perfect example, Equitable versus Equal. Coi Leray versus Lizzo. They've both been body shamed, but it's not
to the same, right, not equal. Absolutely.
Shaming somebody for being too much of the ideal is not the same as shaming somebody for not being the ideal at all. And so when people say, well, Coi Leray's getting dragged as much as Lizzo.
To whom?
Y'all lie all the time just to make a point.
Yeah. They love to. They love it.
The intellectual dishonesty it takes to say that a white person being discriminated against is equitable to a black person being discriminated against. Or
reverse racism.
Child, I love made up terms. Or that a skinny person, a super skinny person who could be a model is being discriminated against for being too skinny the same way as a fat black girl.
Yeah, same thing, right?
Y'all be lying just to make a point. And I say this all the time. Just because your pain is valid doesn't mean it's equal.
Have your pain.
That's your pain. It is valid as your pain. But it does not mean that you having a one-on-one confrontation that hurts your feelings is the same thing as me having a whole system built against me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I love that response.
You know, I also want people to realize that while you're in these like really deep conversations back and forth with each other, and especially when people are like doing the call in and they expect an apology, like I see a lot of just like, I need for you to apologize so I feel valid in my emotions. Like sometimes I feel like people want apologies so they feel the same way they did before the harm happened. And I'm like, that's not how apologies work, because now because harm has happened or you've had a difference, like you all have changed, right? The way that I interact with you have changed. The way that we speak to each other is going to
There's
shift.
been a shift. Yeah.
There's been a shift. So you work off of the shift. You don't work off of the previous experience that you had with a person. And so I see this a lot like on social media where people are just like, I want an apology for how you hurt me. And it's just like, but are you expecting to have the same experience before you got hurt? Or are you willing to learn and evolve with you both around your relationship on what's next? And I feel like that's hard for people to realize. Like, people want to feel validated and even in their power, right? Like, I want to feel like I have my power back because you took it away from me, as opposed to, oh, I am a different person. This has shifted. Let's figure out what this looks like equitably once we move forward, if that makes
It's
sense.
so funny that you talk about apologies, because I've always felt that I've gotten to a place where I'm really good at apologies, but the reason why some people don't receive me as being good at apologies is because I give pure apologies. And a lot of people, they say they want an apology, but what they want to do is to eat my shame. They want me to just flag myself and lash myself and crumble and say I'm a shitty human being and just give you the theater of pain.
Feel as bad as I do.
So that they can eat my shame. And because I'm a shameless person who's also full of accountability and knows how to pivot into like solution spaces and who can validate you and affirm you while still holding on to my own value, it's not satisfying when I apologize, because I'm not a shitty person who fucked you over. I'm a dope person who hurt someone that they care about. And one does not feel like the other.
Yeah.
People be like, I don't like it when you apologize to me. This shit I feel like you still in power. I'm like, oh no, honey, I'm not giving up my power.
No, right.
I'm trying to give you some of yours back.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm Gucci, honey.
Exactly.
And I was born during the cusp of power, so that's just a weird flex. I will say this too, like, we have to be honest that like trauma makes you want to time travel. I tell my clients this all the time. Trauma makes you a time traveler, because when you're feeling anxiety, you're worried about the future. When you're being triggered, you're being pulled into the past. Like, the present is the healthiest place to live in. But when you're in a space of trauma, you're time traveling anywhere. And so you want to go to the past before it happened. We don't live there anymore, sis.
Live there anymore. That's gone. That's gone.
I wish I had booked you to be here for 2 hours, because you're going to be shocked, but we only have like a third of this time left. I know, it's flying by. It's been like,
I'm just sitting there talking.
it's been like 35, 40 minutes already. No, it was like just a regular conversation, right? Like, we're two human beings talking. Okay. Humanized. And so I want to make sure that we do talk about what's happening with, actually, do I want to talk about Young Thug?
Oh, what's happening with Young Thug?
So I'm going to do a quick thing on Young Thug and then pivot.
Okay.
Young Thug is a rapper, obviously, for those of you who are not into rap music, but he has a RICO case against him. There's 28 counts. For those who don't understand what RICO is, I'm going to give you a quick tutorial. RICO means that if me, Shania, and 2 other friends decide we're going to start a gang called the Taurus Gang. Gang. You know what I'm saying? Bull Gang. I almost wore a nose ring. That would have been so Taurus to have 2 nose rings. And Shania robs a bank for our gang. I embezzle money for our gang. The other girl launders money for our gang. And then the last person does a hit and shoots the bank teller for our gang.
Wow, this is organized.
If we are part of an organized team, Shania's not going to be just charged for her crime. We're all being charged for all the crimes because we're doing it as a collective.
Oh, okay.
So when RICO comes in, it means everybody gets got for everything regardless of who actually did it.
Oh, yowzers.
So when there's 28...
This is concerning.
So for those of you who did not understand RICO, I hope you understood that. It just means that allegedly he is involved in organized crime, and the full breadth and weight of what everybody in his alleged group has done is going to fall on his shoulders. And the worst part is 80% of the evidence came from Instagram and his rap lyrics.
Oh, no.
Which is the pivot that we want to do to oversharing. How do you feel? Do you like how we teach and then we pivot?
Right.
Humanized.
I was like, I haven't done any of these things, but how can I assist in your question?
Yeah, because I was like, Blue, this hot topic is provocative. How does that do with me? Well, speaking of oversharing, because we now recognize it's dumb as hell to overshare when you're committing crimes.
Right.
But I think we commit social crimes as well.
All the time.
That we also overshare about. What is the line in the sand for you when it comes to what you share and don't share, particularly now that you are a mother, you have a child, you're a doctor now, you have clients and patients and students who are going to be being nosy and looking at your page at 2:00 on a Sunday morning. Like, how do you navigate all the different people that you are with how you engage socially?
My line is my parents. Like, I'm like,
Oh,
can I put this
great
online?
line.
Can I put this online? And my mom is not going to be embarrassed, right? And it's just like I have to think of that way, because if I don't, I'll put anything up there. Like, I want to be naked and ratchet just like everybody else, but because I have a new position, because I am people see me differently than I see myself, which is something I'm
Yes.
having an issue with. I will
Yeah.
openly admit. So I have to use my mom as like my moral online compass, because I will just put anything. I think I want to share a lot of things, but also, I don't want my mom seeing my ass or twerking.
I wish to God you had told me this before I started this show.
What?
I
Uh-oh.
went back to Boston and I went to my mom's room. She found Humanized. And we
Oh,
talk about all types of shit.
see?
My mother doesn't even know I'm pansexual. I think my mother still thinks I'm a 40-year-old virgin. So I walk in. I walk in and she's watching an episode with my friend Jeff. She's like, I like your friend Jeff. I think he gay. Does he know?
Does he know? Oh, Lord.
I was like, oh,
Thanks for
honey.
your
I was
concern,
like,
Mom.
mommy. I don't think she knows what pansexual is. So I think when she was watching the show, I was talking about being pansexual. She thought I was talking about cooking. Like, I don't think she fully understood.
Oh, you love cooking?
So she's been watching the show, and now I'm scared to make eye contact with her. She's like, I watched your other show with a boy named Damage. He's very handsome. I was like, Mom, oh man.
Oh, Mom.
We talked about sex and dating the entire show.
Yeah, that's all you got, Mom. You just, okay. All right.
So
thanks.
I don't know if she's in denial now and just binge watching Humanized and is like in a space where she just doesn't want to tell me that she now knows about my whole phase and all my business. But I am a little bit, I should have taken your advice.
Yeah, just
90% of what I share on the
do.
internet, I don't want my mother knowing.
Yeah, and so now I had to think like, do I need to separate accounts for these things? I don't know, but that my mom and my dad are definitely, because my mom will quickly reshare things. She'll just look at my daughter, look at my daughter, my baby girl.
Meanwhile, you're having a dominatrix like
meanwhile, swinging my
the
flog.
doctor is in. She's like, what kind of doctor is this?
Look at my baby girl.
Well, you know what's so crazy too, because like now that you're a mom, I've known you since 2008.
Oh, is that wow?
And you're like a whole like mother now, with like a child who stole your face, a whole little you as a human. And in the last episode that just came out, I was talking to Damage. I was like, when I talk to my friends out in LA about getting married and want to have babies now, they're all like, "Oh my God, in LA, you should get a dog." I was like, no, I would like it to have my face.
Yeah,
and not because I plastered it on with a photocopier. And so I'm now trying to identify members of my tribe that I can lean on during like the impending motherhood thing. I'm going to try to do it naturally if I can. I'm going to try to do in vitro if I can't. I'm going to do adopt.
Gotcha.
I'm going to be a mother regardless of however it happens. I'm going to be a mom, right? Actually, I feel like I've already been a mother to a bunch of y'all. And so what advice would you give to women over 35 who are thinking about or determined to be mothers in this world that tells us, in this world where people like Kevin Samuels has been telling us, I'm not going to say rest in peace because I wouldn't mean it, but in this world where people like Kevin Samuels are telling us that we are day-old eggs. Like one of his last posts was of a man looking at eggs and said, if you're over 35, no man wants these. The world is very cruel to us. What's your advice to us? Because I want to end on a note of Mother's Day just passed a while ago, but I want to end on a note of like giving some kind of hope to those of us who are on the other side waiting to get to where you're at right now.
Absolutely. Shout out to mothers of all genders. I appreciate mother as a gender. That is an identity that I have. And I will say, as a person who has gotten pregnant over 35, that it can be done. And even if it's not, the quote unquote natural way, like there are plenty of like organizations and clinics who are willing to help you get to where you need to go. I knew that my baby's a donor baby. And so I was very intentional about who I chose in terms of like sperm, in terms of sperm. And like I did a lot of research. I knew at the time I wasn't with my partner, but I was making this conscious decision of having this baby and what I wanted my village to look like. And so there were particular people that I chose who were, godfathers or godmothers or aunties or uncles or, or auntie uncles, how people identify, gunkles, all the many different like identities. Like everybody was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to show for this. I will watch the baby. baby, if you go out of town, if you're at a conference. So I will say it can be done, but the most important thing that I have learned is like, you have to have your people. Like,
Yeah.
I will be your person, of course. Like, I will definitely be here to help
Aw.
with all the things.
My baby has an auntie already.
Yes,
Aw.
I'll be more than happy to, but it can be done. I would just definitely get a community to do it with you. Like, I always say, like, how are we going to have queer futures without queer kids?
It takes a village.
Have some babies, y'all.
And it's really interesting, too, because now when I look at friends, I'm like, who would I want to be around my child?
Yes.
And who would I want watching me engage with? Because when your children watch people treat you poorly, they internalize that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's sometimes, there's a couple of friends I have who I love, who I'm like, I wouldn't want my kid to see how you treat me.
Yeah.
And so I will say, I think motherhood's going to make me even more honest than I already am. When you come, I want you to come back so bad.
Oh, give me a reason.
Yeah, no.
This is my final tour, so I'm ready if I need to.
I need you to, when do you leave?
Saturday morning.
Shit, we should have scheduled you to come do another show. Because I recently got a diagnosis that I really wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a thing that I haven't shared publicly yet, but I've been telling my close friends. It's not anything bad.
Okay.
It's not. It's not bad, but there can be stigma attached to it depending on how evolved the people you're talking to are. And it's one of those things where I feel like I like a superhero, but that's just the way my brain works.
Right.
Like, yeah, look at me being a superhero. So yeah, I want to have a really great conversation with you, and I think that you are probably one of the best equipped people I know to have it. So I'm gonna intentionally, to your face, so on camera, ask you to come back. Shanae, our hour is over.
Dang.
It went by fast,
Good.
right?
I know.
We feel like we just barely started
I just
talking.
sat down. Right. We just got warmed up. Okay.
This is what potting is.
Okay. I'm all for it.
The way that you're looking at the the visual of the way that you are engaging with this mic, it's sometimes phallic. It's sometimes like an aggressive, like you're scared of it. Really?
sorry. Okay. I'm a professional, really.
She's a great professional. And one thing I will say as well too, meeting your friend yesterday, I was like, you have a tendency to attract kind people.
Yes, very kind.
Everybody can be as flawed as they want to. We all have our flaws, but you are a kind people magnet. And that's one of the things I've always loved about you.
That's good to hear. Thanks. I'm glad you.
I hope you agree too.
Yes,
I agree.
Kind.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Humanized. For those of you who have been watching the show or listening, if you are listening on Apple, please give us 5 stars, rate us, and follow us, because apparently that helps the algorithm.
Okay.
I'm still
learning.
Look, I'm just doing this pod thing because it keeps on paying my bills. Okay. But also make sure that you go to bluecentricshop.com to buy any of the goods that we have on sale, or if you want to just book a reading with me or consultation with me.
Get both, all of them.
All
them
of them.
Candles. Get them candles. This
is what I want to shout before we wrap up. We are having our emotional intelligence workshop series 10 weeks starting next month. Please register if you are interested. If you ever want to do work with me, if you are somebody who has a therapist and needs someone to have the rest of the greasy conversation that your therapist legally can't have with you, we have that. If you want somebody who wants to have a group setting with accountability partners, we're good for that. It's just a really great time. And also, I sometimes accidentally end up giving psychic readings to my clients because their spirit guides jump in during the sessions. I'm like, oh, your auntie said you were lying. That's always fun when that happens. But the URL is OTS22.eventbrite.com, and OTS stands for Own Thy Shift. So all the workshops I do are called Own Thy Shift because I'm not saving anybody. I'm just giving them the tools to save themselves.
Let them do it.
So OTS22.eventbrite.com. Please share that with anybody that you know who needs to work on their internal dialogue, their relationship management, their boundary enforcement, or just letting go of anything toxic that's holding them back. Shanae, you are amazing. I could not love you more if I tried.
Thanks for having me.
Bye,
I love
guys.
you too.
Oh,
Bye.